Today's program will begin momentarily. Supported by Verso Studios, created locally and shared with the world.
Good evening, Westport. Y'all, DiFranco is here. That's what I'm talking about. Hello, my name is Carrie, and I am part of the programming team here at the library, and on behalf of our entire staff, it is my pleasure to welcome you to VersoFest 2026, and tonight's event celebrating the release of The Spirit of Ani, Reflections on Spirituality, Feminism, Music, and Freedom, a collaboration between author and cultural anthropologist Lauren Coyle-Rosen and Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriter, artist, and activist Ani DiFranco, our guest tonight. This festival could not happen without the generous support of our VersoFest partners and sponsors, many of whom are here tonight. So can I ask you, if you're a sponsor or a donor, can you please just stand so we can give you a quick little round of applause if you're in the audience? Thank you so much. So y'all, spending time in Ani DiFranco's world of poetry, lyricism, and unflinching storytelling hits differently. Am I right? Yeah. Many of us who followed Ani over her 3.5-decade career carry her music like a bookmark. Whole chapters of our lives evoked by a single song or album, transporting us back not necessarily to a specific moment or detail, but to a feeling of recognition, like something in us that we might not even have the words for yet has been quietly and confidently named. And in that naming comes a knowing that we are somehow, with Ani as our witness, a little less alone. It makes sense then that Ani has described her songs as beginning with exactly that, a feeling, an intuition. Something calling to be communicated, which she then wraps in language and sound to bring into the world. Ani's intuitive artistry was present even as a young kid growing up in Buffalo, New York. She picked up her first guitar at age 9 and started playing Beatles covers at bars and on the streets with her guitar mentor and friend, Michael Meldrum. By 14, she was writing her own music. By 15, she was living on her own, earning money playing popular songs on the sidewalk for tips. She soon began to write her own material, and by 18, moved to New York City and found mentors in her teachers at the New School for Social Research and in musicians on the folk music scene, including the late Pete Seeger. By 1990, at age 19, Ani had written over 100 songs and had recorded and produced hundreds of copies of a self-titled cassette to sell at her concerts. Remember cassettes? This became the impetus to start her own record label, Righteous Babe Records, with friend and manager Scott Fisher. The Righteous Babe logo, based on a photo of Ani standing on the roof of the Sideway building in Buffalo, is emblematic of the strength, ferocity, and independence that have defined her career. Since the 90s, Ani has been a feminist icon and counterculture crusader, calling out the patriarchy, writing raw and unapologetic lyrics that challenge the status quo, advocating for social justice, and making art that serves as a tool for personal and collective transformation. Though frequently approached by major record labels throughout her career, Ani has stayed true to her DIY mission of making and producing meaningful music that celebrates artistic freedom and grassroots activism. Over the years, Righteous Babe has brought on other indie artists similarly aligned in their artistic vision and activism, and has given back to numerous social justice organizations championing anti-war efforts, racial and climate justice, LGBTQ plus equality, anti-death penalty work, and reproductive rights through its philanthropic arm, the Righteous Babe Foundation. This commitment to community building, restorative justice, and to the living, breathing exchange between artist and audience has always been at the heart of Ani's life and work, and are themes that are detailed in her new book, The Spirit of Ani. Following in the footsteps of her 2019 New York Times best-selling memoir, No Walls and the Reoccurring Dream, the book dives even deeper into Ani's internal world, her relationship to creativity, intuition, and activism, and the delicate balance between opening herself so vulnerably and generously to her audiences while still protecting the space her own spirit needs to thrive. This book is at once deeply self-reflective and a powerful call to action, inspiring readers to live and create authentically, to follow their gut wisdom, and to nourish their connection to themselves and to one another. Ani is joined in conversation tonight by Emmy Award-winning sportscaster and media personality Lindsay Czarniak. With more, let's get an applause for Lindsay. With more than 2 decades of experience in sports journalism, Lindsay has served as a host, anchor, sideline reporter, pit reporter, and international correspondent for multiple networks, and has covered everything from the Olympic Games to Super Bowls to the Indy 500. Last year, Lindsay launched her podcast, Things No One Tells You, which features candid interviews with newsmakers, athletes, entertainers, and everyday people, exploring the untold stories, unspoken struggles, and insights that connect us all. Tonight, we gather in community inside the walls of this dynamic library to spend time with Ani DiFranco and offer gratitude for the gifts she has given us over a prolific, multi-decade career. Gifts that include over 20 albums, countless artistic and charitable collaborations, several books, and even a stint on Broadway as Persephone in Hadestown. But perhaps the greatest gift Ani has given us, especially women, queer folk, and those whose voices have been historically marginalized by mainstream culture, is permission to just be in her music, to sit with that feeling, that rush of recognition that is somehow all at once affirming, healing, joyful, a little bit cheeky, empowering, and cathartic. That feeling you can't quite put your finger on, but that pulses in your body in rhythm with her music that's like, oh yeah, wow, thank you, Ani, me too. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Lindsay Czarniak and Ani DiFranco.
You sat down too fast. That's for you.
Oh, no, I gotta take a seat. This is too beautiful. What a beautiful spot. What a beautiful group. Your introduction made me cry.
I know, Carrie, that was
We're off
beautiful.
to that kind of start.
I know, well, welcome. And I was thinking, towards the end of your book, you talk about how when you go on stage, you say you get yourself in the mindset and you drop the veil, you say drop the ego, really just be. And I really think that's what this is.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm a crier. What's wrong with No, it's
Everybody got tissues? Okay.
It's the connection, it is, it's what your music, and for those of us in this room who are very aware of your music, it's what people feel collectively when they listen to it. It's so powerful. So welcome, and thank you for being
Lindsay.
here, Ani.
It's great to be here. Yeah. I'm gonna get comfortable.
You're taking your shoes off. Oh, I love it. It's that kind of talk. Okay.
Yeah, baby.
So on that topic, And I did just get
Maybe
my toes
we'll trade
done.
shoes by the end of the night.
I would do that. That's awesome. Thank you. Oh, this feels so much better. What does it mean to you to have that kind of reaction and to know that it comes from a place of being able to reach so many people at their core?
Well, yeah, I've gotten to the place in my life. I am grateful and thankful to say that it means everything. I think there were decades past when it was overwhelming and I felt depleted, by the whole thing, but I'm so well past that now. I mean, I was hanging out in New York last week doing some work, and I passed a woman on the street one afternoon walking down the avenue, and she just said, "I love you." And I cried all the way back to my hotel because it means that much. And I'm finally at a place where I'm ready to receive it and reciprocate and just feel that back, feel so grateful back for that connection.
We were standing backstage. Sorry, my Pilates is not working that well right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I said to Ani when Carrie was describing her, going through the accolades and things, and was talking about the part about how you have made and continue to make people feel the way that they feel, and through the pivotal years of their lives. I mean, that's the thing. You know what's so funny? Friends of mine in this town who I did not know when I started listening to your music, I'm on a text chain, and one of my friends said, "Girls, I took a train from Paris to Germany in the early 90s all by myself to see Ani." She was in high school, I think.
Oh, I love it.
And so the list, it went on, and it just, you realize how, what you were singing about, writing about, is just such a connector. And when I asked you backstage, I said, when did you realize that you had that power? And you said?
Right away. I mean, in a, in my little way, in a little bar in Buffalo. That's just, maybe I'm making it up, but my memory is that the minute that I opened my mouth and just shared my truth, there was always somebody. There was somebody in the room. There was some chick, like 2 beers in, that would just start crying. And then there was hugging to do, and there was it just, that's been my experience, that the minute you just show up as your authentic self, somebody else does that back.
Yeah, yes. What do you think it is about your writing and your music that reaches people that way? What is it by your definition?
Well, I was going to say I don't know and I don't need to know, but I think maybe I do know, actually. It just took me a second in my little brain. The word vulnerability has come up so much over the decades, and I don't think I really understood that until recently. That word that kept coming back to me. Thank you for your... I was like, what does that even mean? And now I get it. Now I get it. Do we have Brené Brown fans?
Yes.
Yeah, she's a badass. And just, right, the strength that it takes to be vulnerable, to do an action without knowing the result.
She wrote the book Daring Greatly, for those of you that, I know everyone here probably knows her, but just in case, Melvin, I think you know her. That's my husband, by the way.
Hey.
But, so this book and the spirit of Ani, why, first of all, there are so many, I think, different themes, of course, but different lessons to take from this, which is really you sharing your blueprint for the way that you look at things, right? How would you describe this, and why did this book show up now?
Well, It's showing up now because it took 2 years to get it from the conversation that it centers around to this little package. So it's funny for you to talk about the now, because this, I can feel the distance that I've put already between myself and this Ani that's talking in this book, because life just keeps going. And but yeah, a couple of years ago, Lauren just called me up.
Lauren Coyle Rosen.
Yeah,
who co-wrote.
my co-author. She's an academic, a very witchy academic and writer of books, very thoughtful person, and she had read my memoir, and I guess she was curious about some of the spiritual stuff that came up in that book, and she wanted to explore more. So that was her proposition, and I think she imagined that we would have a series of conversations, and then she would write a book. And instead, I got involved, and I didn't, I didn't leave, the guest that wouldn't leave. So we sort of put it together. I mean, we worked on it together, and we kept it conversational. It was kind of it was hard because the publishers, we were sort of shopping the book around, and publishers were like, and they were trying to encourage us to just make it, pontificating on the page. And we felt that it was right to keep it as a conversation, because so much of what we were talking about was that existence is conversation. That's why we embody into these supposedly separate forms, is to be in relationship with each other. That's so we just keeping it as a relationship, as a back and forth, felt right. So we kind of had to fight for that one. But Akashic Books, this really sweet indie book publisher, said, sure, let's do this. So yeah, so we had these conversations, and then we collaborated, sort of editing them down to what you have. Yeah.
What were you most excited about with this book and the content in there that you guys get into?
I don't know. I really don't sort of spend time reflecting on my own voice and what comes out of my face, Really? I mean, really, for me, it is all about just being in the moment. So I was in the moment in the process of this book, and then the moment that's done, I'm just off. I'm off and running. And
have you always been that way?
Yeah, it's been useful for me.
Wait, so I have questions. Okay, so I know you picked up a guitar for the first time when you were 9, right?
This chair doesn't want me to face you.
I know, but it kind of feels good. It's like we're in our bumper cars. We're ready to take off. When you were 9, and I was talking to my daughter because I was making her listen to some of your albums the past week, and she actually fell in love with the song Both Hands, which I love. And she can sing the whole thing. And she was like, I don't exactly know what it means. I was like, well, that might actually at this point.
That's fair.
Be fair.
That's probably good.
But you were 9, you pick up a guitar, and like, what was it at that point that drew you to the music? What was your hope?
I guess I didn't really have hopes or aspirations per se for an outcome. What I had was trouble in my little 9-year-old body, and I wanted to get it out. I used to dance a lot. I thought maybe I would be a dancer. I used to paint and draw all the time, and then to start singing and playing guitar, I think it was just more of me trying to find homeostasis, to just find peace. I was in a house that was full of bad vibes, and making art instantly felt like medicine. So really, it was just about a healing process, and still is.
So what happened next?
Well, I met this guy named Michael. He was 33 at the time, I think. I was 9.
Michael Meldrum?
Michael Meldrum, yes. Yes, thank you. He was like kind of the unofficial mayor of Buffalo, New York. You know, everybody knew him. He had been like, you know, he was the kind of guy that his address was his girlfriend of the moment's address, you know, and, but he was though he was kind of sort of a hobo, he was also brilliant. He was a reader. He was a thinker. He was a songwriter. Oh,
That's
there
him.
he is. There's Michael. Yeah, and there we are in this gig he got me involved in. That was my 11th birthday.
Wow.
We played that Save the Whales and Dolphins benefit. Yeah, we saved them too. They still exist. But yeah, Michael, I met him at this guitar shop where my parents humored me and bought me a guitar. I asked for one when I was 9, and there he was. And I remember he used to teach lessons at this guitar shop, and I took lessons, not from him per se, but the lesson I was taking and the lesson he was teaching were at the same time. So he and I would sit in the chairs in the little sort of hallway-shaped guitar shop on Allen Street in Allentown in Buffalo. And we just started talking to each other, and it was on. It was on. We were best friends. We were an odd couple, but for sure. He would spring me, you know, so there he was, a songwriter as well, among his many talents, activities. And so I started writing songs because, you know, my pal was doing it. Seemed like the thing you do, like really young. So he would come spring me from high school, at least.
Wow.
And I would go he would be artist in residence at other public schools in Buffalo. So he would come get me out of school, and I would go do that with him. I did everything with him. Played in bars, bussed on the street. He took me everywhere.
What was that like?
I mean, it was the 70s, so there was a 9-year-old in the bar, sure. Sure. You know, some dude who's not my parent is coming and getting me out of school, sure. You know, there was a freedom, and we exploited it, yeah.
And so from that, how much of that time frame and experience did you take into your music moving forward?
So much. I mean, Michael was my first mentor. He showed me the template of my job, you know. He showed me how it's done. He ran the open mic at Nietzsche's bar. And then by the time I was 15, I ran the open mic at Nietzsche's bar. And yeah, I mean, really, really a mentor, not just in being a troubadour, but in being somebody on a sort of spiritual and intellectual quest, somebody who's curious and free.
What do you feel like types of things were you discovering spiritually even at that point? What were you thinking about? You know, what was the young...
What was it? Oh, goddess forbid. I don't know. Those early songs, I'm sure they're... Oh. See, no, but here's the thing. And I shouldn't even say this, but you don't know the first tape. You don't know the first tape. Before the first tape, there was the first tape. But, you know, I think I made 100 copies and whatever. I was just, you know, finding my voice, young person. But yeah, on the first tape, there's all those songs about social issues. You know, I mean, right? So how old was I? I don't know, a teenager. And, I remember there was a song called AIDS, just called AIDS. I was talking about some stuff there. And, yeah, just already kind of up in my feels.
Yeah. What were the most important things to you at that time? What were the things that were most on your mind that you felt like you wanted to be singing about, writing about?
Yeah, well, I was well on my way. I mean, I guess, no, I was years into being an emancipated minor. I was on my own when I was 15, starting at 15. So a lot of what was on my mind was being a teenage girl alone in a man's world, holding down the open mic in a bar full of dudes drinking. Survival was on my mind. And we talk about it actually in this book, Lauren and I. It's funny, she caught me a couple of funny moments in this conversation where, she would bring up song lyrics like, if he tries anything or something, what were the lyrics? She would quote these lyrics where I'm like, I'm, all powerful, gonna tell you where to get off. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
And like, how were you this at that age? And I was like, please. She kept catching me in my lies, But over the course of the conversation, it came up a few times, like, okay, so the reality is I was not that at all. I was singing my spells. I was singing to myself that I am strong and I am capable and I am not to be fucked with.
And I know you said the connection, you could tell right away that you were connecting, that what you were writing and singing about was resonating with the people that were hearing it. When did you realize that those messages were also just so impactful and that was really getting through?
Well, it's hard to, even for myself to put myself back there. But, for those of us that were around, whatever, in the 80s, I guess, is when I started opening my mouth and singing in a big way. And it was just so different. The women's voices were not so audible. There was just so much more exclusion. Queer voices, everyone was in the closet. It was not that long ago, but it was so different. And I felt that. I felt how hidden so many were. And pissed me off. So that was, which is not to say I was on some kind of political mission. I was on a visceral mission, Mm-hmm. And so that was just, I think, driving me from the beginning.
When the record labels started reaching out, how did you handle that?
I mean, I was an idealistic kid. I don't know. I had thoughts about other things other than feminism and queer liberation. I had thoughts about all sorts of things. And one of them was capitalism. Boo. Boo. And so it just was apparent that, it was a big business, music. Mm-hmm. And profit motive was the thing, like any big business. And it just was apparent that the interests of those businesses and the interests of art and culture and people and human evolution, we're often contradictory, in conflict. So I was suspect. I was just suspect. And I did not have a plan, I had no plan. I was naive in many ways.
I think that's great. Don't you think naivety, looking back, is like
Sure.
such a blessing?
Yeah, I think if I'm hearing you, I agree that not knowing how it goes can be a blessing, because often how it goes sucks. So, but yeah, I think in the beginning I was really dealing with some very basic, the differential between attraction and aversion. And I showed up in these offices or at these lunches or at these, kind of, we're going to make you a star meetings. And I felt the aversion. And I felt like I've always felt like I could sort of see into the future, at least of my own existence. And I could see that path and where it led, and it was not a happy Ani. It was not a fulfilled Ani.
What was that like when you looked towards the future? What types of things in that scenario did you feel like you saw?
I mean, when I was young, and even say, okay, so fast forward a bunch of years, I've started Righteous Babe, I'm putting out my records independently, I've already started down this other path, but I'm still touring alone, driving myself everywhere, doing all the things, selling the tapes out of the trunk of my car, as the story goes, like that was real in the beginning. And it was exhausting, and I exhausted myself pretty early on, and I needed help. And my manager at the time put it to me like, okay, if you want to hire somebody to help you drive and maybe do sound check that didn't involve electroshock therapy every day, you have to sell T-shirts. We got to make a T-shirt. Ew, 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 ew. No.
Ew.
Of course,
Really?
I relented. I relented at some point.
And why did you say ew? Like, why didn't you?
It just felt embarrassing. It felt embarrassing, right? Even this name on the cover of this book, it feels embarrassing. But I'm at the age now where I'm like, whatever. It's just a name. It's just a face. I'm not going to getting worked up, getting all that embarrassed.
Great
feels
picture.
Kind of self-involved. Thank you. Yeah. But somebody else came up with all of this, and I'm like, sure. I am over even worrying about that. But at the time, that girl looked into the music business, and I just felt mortified by the game I would have needed to play in that scenario. It just felt so not me.
And you wanted the same end game, though, right? I mean, to be able to do your music and to do that for a living. So who did you have in your corner that was giving you the confidence to do that and create your own label? And were they giving you the type of confidence that convinced you that it was going to work? Because that's bold.
Yeah, no, who I had was that girl crying into her beer. That's who I had. And I think I was, but for reals, I think I was blessed. One of my biggest graces, I think, that has carried me is that thrilled me. In the Essex Street pub with 5 people in the room, 3 of them listening, if I was lucky, making that connection thrilled me. And I wasn't in this game, this trap that we fall into of thinking, if I just get to the next level, I will be happy, I will be fulfilled. And I've been asked so many times over the decades, like, how do I get to the next level? Like, here we are, this is the level, this is it. And I didn't have to think that, or I didn't have to try to get there. I felt it. I felt really thrilled, even being not a success by anyone's measure. If I connected with somebody, that was like the goal. And it started happening immediately, so immediately I was a success as far as I was concerned.
That's so incredible. How do you get to that point for people that aren't there? Because you had it, and you're right, what you're describing is the one person that you're feeling the connection with, and you know in your soul that is what maybe you were meant to do, or whatever that translates to you. So how do other people get that? Like, how do you describe that? And I know it's part of what you share in the book.
Yeah, right. Just being in the moment. I guess you just have to let go of a lot of ideas that you grew up in. You have to put down your culture in a lot of ways that's telling you you're supposed to get anywhere. Will you share your story of your grandma right before she passed?
Yes. This is deep. So we were upstairs, and I was saying there's a part where Ani's talking about spirituality and the connection with animals. Also, my favorite animal, sidebar, is a donkey. And there's just many reasons, but I love them. And my husband's like, please stop talking. I recently did this donkey meditation that was at this place where you can go. Anyway, I went in the room up there where they had me sitting, and on the wall, there's a picture of a donkey. I was like, they don't know. But the story about my grandma is that when my grandmother passed, which was 2 years ago, a few months before, we had been talking, and I was in conversation with my grandma and my mom, and we were sitting around our kitchen table. And my mom was making the point, my mom's the oldest of her 2 sisters. And my mom said, Mom, to my grandma, it seems like you've gotten so much more relaxed and calm. And she was making the point that my grandmother used to get worked up and anxious about things that weren't going the way she wanted. And my grandma said, super calm, you know what I've started doing? I've started putting myself with the animals. And my mom and I looked at each other like, what is she talking about? And she said, and which is funny because she had this family of deer too, I didn't tell you this, that would come to her yard, and one of them had a broken leg. And we would see that deer every few months when we were there, and it was always this sort of random touchstone. But my grandma went on to say, I have started putting myself with the animals and envisioning myself with, the different rabbits or whatever they were in the forest. And it sounded so bizarre, but really it was, she was dead serious, and it was a piece that she was describing,
Incredibly wise, yeah. It's funny, us humans, this mythical state of enlightenment that we dream of, and that a few, gurus in India have achieved over thousands of hours of meditation. Every other animal is in that state right now and always. And us humans think we are so special for being able to destroy our host planet, for being able to transform ourselves from mammal to parasite, So and this human culture that teaches you need to get there, when really you need to get back there.
Mm-hmm. And when you talk about their enlightenment, describe that a little bit. Like, what is that state that you see that the animals are in?
I mean, I'm not able, the way some are, to actually thought share. Well, that's not true. I know what my dog's thinking sometimes.
Oh.
And really? I know she knows my mind. In fact, if I'm like sitting at the computer and she'll start whimpering. Mm-hmm. She starts getting really fidgety and starts whimpering, and then I realize, oh, I need to eat. And seriously, that is her way. She feels it. She knows everything that's happening in me. And, you know, scientists are only beginning. The research that science has been doing on telepathy, for instance, thought sharing, which has been going on since the 70s, only now are they starting to get anything other than excommunicated, you know, and thrown off the planet and de-whatevered. But, you know, your dog knowing when you're coming home, not because they can smell you 20 miles away when you make that turn, but because there's thought sharing happening between all other species and can be happening with us all the time. And so for plants. And I am just an infant in this vast world of possibility, but it thrills me to no end to think that conversation is, that friends and family are all around us in every living thing, and that conversation and relationship is available to us were we to get back there within ourselves, get quiet enough to pick up the signal. So, yeah, what were we talking about?
I don't know. If you would have told me in the 90s that I would be talking to you and talking about getting with the animals, I would have been like, no.
I just love that that's what your grandma said.
I do too, yeah. And you know what's funny is at the same place where I was, it was Miraval, if any of you have been there, a couple girlfriends went to just get away, and they had these events or these activities that you signed up for, and one of them was the experience with the donkeys. And my friends were mortified that I did that, but I was like, come on. And my one friend came with me, and I was like, see? But they have them in this ring, and you just go and you just are with them. And the thing about donkeys is, I'm so sorry. Horses are known as horses. I mean, everyone would expect a king would ride on a horse, but, you know, they don't. They ride sometimes on donkeys. And anyway, and they do this, so they have this therapy where you go, and the whole thing is you're sitting with them and you are just waiting for them to come up to you, and they let you into their world. So that was mind-blowing.
Don't get me started on past lives, because now I want to know. I want to know the story of you and the donkeys, right? Don't you just want to know? Yeah.
I'm so sorry. So anyway, but real quick, back to my grandma, I just found that she was so calm and so deliberate in it. And she had also, and then shortly before she passed, she said, my mom asked her one day, you know, how are you feeling? And she said, I am so ready. And she said, do you see the footprints there? Again, we were like, what? And there were footprints that she saw on the side of her room. So that was a magical, awesome experience. But I think it's so incredible, and really it is what you share about just that, and getting to that part of who you are. And really what you're saying is, this is really all we need, and being vulnerable and communicating and the connection. Your dad, I wanted to ask you just about how special he was and how much of an impact he was for you, because that's something too that was something that I took from the book, and how you said that you have had interactions also with him.
Yeah. My dad passed when I was in my mid-30s. And
There he is.
There he is. There we are. Yeah, we are really soul bonded, my dad and I. And when he passed, I was not in the room. I was recording an album in LA, and I got the call from my brother. Dad's not well. And so I dropped the session with all the dudes in the studio and everything, and the pay for it, all the things, and should I just finish and to the credit, that's how young I was. It was a question in my mind. And the other people involved in the session said, go. So I flew home and I laid with him for a few days as his body shut down. I laid in his bed in the home with him. But this night, it was time to go. Kicking you out time. So I went home, and at about 3 a.m, I'm not much of a sleeper, and especially not in this moment, right? And at 3 a.m, I was suddenly stricken because it got quite chilly that night, and I realized I left the window open in his room. And I started panicking that he's cold. He's going to be cold. And I was thinking, I'll drive there. And I'll just talk, and and then just an extraordinary transformation of my whole state of being. It was like a tidal wave of peace, bliss, like a feeling I've not had before or since. And I heard a voice. Maybe this is the closest I've come to actually hearing spirit. I heard a voice say, it's all perfect. There's nothing to do.
Wow.
And I went and I laid down and I had the deepest sleep. And I woke up to the phone, and my brother saying, Dad died at 3 a.m. last night. And it made sense in retrospect. So yeah, I'm all about death. I love me some death.
What do you mean?
Girl, it is not an end. This word is very, very, very destructive. This idea that we have. I mean, it is a loss for those who are left behind. And that's the word. Grief is the word that we need to contend with. Death is an adventure. Death is on to the next adventure. It never ends. And if you're like me, you fall asleep listening to near-death experience stories every night.
That's what you do?
That's what I do. That is what I do. I highly recommend it.
I love this about you. Because how I shared that thing about my grandmother talking about the wall, ever since then it has made me just think about, because that made me feel more comfortable with her.
Yeah.
And knowing that that was going to happen, I knew that she knew and felt good about where she was going.
The Other Side is a podcast. You can find it, The Other Side. There's a lot of these outlets now where there's no commentary, there's no whatever, there's just one story after another, first person, of people who have died. Near-death experience is a sucky term, because it's a death experience. Some people die for 3 minutes, some people die for 40 minutes, and then come back to the same body. This has happened, this is where all of our all the religious ideas. You know, I've never been one for organized religion because of the patriarchy aspect, really. Yeah, but it's all based in real stuff, I think, which is why it's so powerful. But yeah, people who cross over, everyone, I mean, they're all so unique, these stories. Fascinating. Like, we are unique in life. We are unique in forever, living in all of our incarnations and in between embodiments, and we're all so unique. But there are so many commonalities as well, and one of them that you will hear is how expansive, how thrillingly expansive it is to be out of the body, how no one wants to come back in the body. They all say it. Oh, I didn't want to go back. But then I heard my child call. I heard, you know, I had to come back and do some more stuff. I needed to come back. But it's excruciating, because to actually be one with the infinite and to go home, as we all get to do after every adventure, is the real thrill.
Is that what your musical is about?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I asked her upstairs, and she said, I can't. Yeah, really? Tell us more.
I mean, can I? I've been, so I'm writing a musical, supposedly, maybe. I don't know. It's what I've been.
This is so exciting.
Yeah, I find it so exciting. And yeah, but I've been sort of letting this leak what I've been up to, and I have had these conversations. What is your musical about? And I'm like, oh.
Right.
You
so
know.
let's just share.
Yeah. Okay.
This
okay.
is...
Elevator pitch. I mean, it centers around a family. And which is my context to unpack things like life and death and the nature of consciousness. And 2 children in this family. One of them, the daughter, has an NDE, a near-death. She dies when she's a young child, and then comes back into her body, but retains an open channel with spirit, which is a very common experience, probably a lot of you know, for people who come back into the same body. There's often, they are clairvoyant, they are precognizant, they are, all these things open up for them, other levels of consciousness, which are typically embodied, neurotypical people don't generally achieve. Her sibling, her younger brother, is a nonverbal autistic, which, has anybody heard the telepathy tapes? Yeah, baby. Another super highly recommended podcast from your folk singer, soon to be documentary film as well. But it begins by unpacking the telepathic abilities of these non-speakers, which we are coming to understand more fully now that they have ways of communicating, spellers, they call themselves, with us, voice users. So now that they are informing the world of voice users, what their experience is, it's mind-blowing. They are, many of them, having relationships and friends out of their body. They're in a world which does not even recognize their full sentience in many cases. They're spend so many years, some of them, some of these children are in their 20s before their parents meet them through assisted communication. And stories like my kid knows several languages. My kid knows history. My kid, because they are graced with experiences like tapping into the Akashic record of all of human thought, of the history of human ideas. They have whole lives. You know, my child, I noticed they always go, you know, they're extremely hypersensitive to the sensory input of the body. It's completely overwhelming, and have not control over the body in the way that a typically embodied person does. Meanwhile, they are doing all of this astral projection. They have these whole other existences that most of us knew nothing of, you know? So yeah, like my kid goes into his room and covers himself in pillows, and then I hear him in there laughing. He's hanging out with his friends. Anyway, what a cool world. And it's only just beginning.
I have so many more questions. It's real quick before, because we do want to have some audience Q&A, but I do want to ask you, there's so much I want to ask you about your songs and also about your creative right brain thought process. I love how you look at that in terms of right brain, left brain. That's fascinating to me. But really, I would love to know, like, what is the thing no one tells you about the importance of following your gut and your intuition?
Yeah, we unpack that a little bit in here. I believe that the brain is not just up here. This is a brain to me. And yeah, like when you were asking about me coming up and me trying to find my path and should I take the record deal? This is the brain that guided me the whole way. This was the brain I was listening to. This is the one that confused me along the way and made me feel conflicted a lot. But luckily, I was paying attention to this brain, and I do think that that science is beginning to open itself to that idea, that the brain is only the electrical activity within the skull is old school, and that it's becoming, our understanding is blooming from there. And I'm just all about it, knowing that this was the brain that guided me.
Did you have people that were basically saying, you're crazy, you need to take your record deal, you don't do it on your own?
Sure, and they were not wrong. They were not wrong. You know, it was crazy in a lot of ways. It was the slow track, for sure. But it was a great ride. And so, yeah, I just stuck with the gut.
I love it. Carrie, we are going to take some audience Q&A.
Yeah, so folks, we have time for just a couple questions. If anyone has a burning question for Ani, I would just ask if you could queue up here so we could capture you on the mic, please. It's not as intimidating as it looks, I promise.
Yeah, the spotlight.
I see someone coming around.
Yes, here comes a brave soul. Hello.
Hi there.
Yay.
Thank you for coming. So I'm the dad, the proud dad, the wondrously proud dad, and just of Winston Brown. He is in the Telepathy Tapes film. He's here in Westport, Connecticut. And he is fluent in Mandarin. He is fluent in Spanish. He has a girlfriend in Fairfield, Connecticut, who's a non-speaking autistic. And our lives have changed so much, from Kai Dickens, who I know is your bud, and who adores you. And I've heard rumors about your involvement in the film project.
I adore you back. I have watched you for so many hours.
Wow.
So yeah, when Wynn's in the film, and it's changed his life. We just got back from LA, and he talked with Mayim Bialik yesterday about being on her podcast, and he was in a soap opera last week.
Amazing.
So his life is changing because people like you who are tapping into what's changing this year, next year, this awareness that it's not just what we see. If you look at this guy, you have no understanding of what's going on inside. But we are conditioned, and special education is conditioned to only base our awareness on observation. And so when everything is tied to the body and the physical, we are missing it, and you've tapped it, so we're so grateful to have you.
Thank you. You've changed my life, too.
Can you say hi? Come say hi? Hi. Just say hi? Huh? All right.
Oh, I love you so much. Thank you. Yeah, you will re-meet them in the documentary.
That's awesome.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. I suppose my question for you would be, what would you want to say to all of the humans entering into adolescence right now?
It's a good question.
And I love you very much.
Yeah, I might start there, too, with yes. And then I guess if it was going to be one thing, I would say, let's just be the tolerance that we want to see in the world. I believe that young people are so beautifully woke. It's so exciting to think of what's coming. What breaks my heart sometimes is when we embody the kind of intolerance towards each other that we are pointing at in our opponents, the way that we are policing each other to do as I do. My way is the only way. I guess I would just put my hat in for let's allow our differences. Recognize other people trying, even if their methods, their exact way, their exact words are not yours.
Thank you.
Hi, Ani.
Hi.
I'm Natalie. You've been my favorite artist since I was a teenager, and thank you so much for everything. What do you imagine when you think about these oppressive systems falling down, patriarchy, white supremacy, capitalism, organized religion? Like, what do you imagine that would look like? Like how, what?
I imagine it would look like reciprocity. This state of being of mutual gift giving, where it's a frickin' love contest, and the one who gives the most wins.
Yes. Thank you.
Good evening, Ani.
Hi.
I want to thank you. About 8 years ago tonight, my wife, who's like everybody else here, your biggest fan, and I shared we didn't know it was going to be our first date, and we walked outside to her got and she had a sticker that she still has on her car, ANI, and I was like, does she know Ani DiFranco? I'm like, what is that? She's like, it's Ani DiFranco, and that was how we first bonded. So I want to thank you for that, because 8 years later, she's sitting beside me, bawling her eyes out all night. So I thank you for that. My question to you, Ani, is there's so much negativity in the news. I can't watch it. You've been through decades of roller coasters, storms. There's so many people that are scared right now. What advice, through your experience as an artist, as a feminist, as a trailblazer, would you give to us, especially my wife, who I don't want to watch the news, to get through these times?
I hear you about not being able to watch the news. And I do believe that it's a very powerful truth that we give energy where we put our attention. And I think the way we got here was by following that guy around with microphones and cameras. So if your instinct is to turn your attention on all the good people around you, all the badasses doing cool shit, and give them your attention and your energy and get involved with that, I'm for it.
Thank you.
Hi. So as someone who's been listening to your music for 30-something years, what is that self-editing process? Like, what makes you, maybe instinct or the thoughts to poetry, to what we get to listen to? I mean, there must be so much, especially with the world and everything going on, but you can't sing about everything. So how do you decide? Like, how many conversations, I mean, as an artist.
That's a really good question.
Because you can't make everything, you know?
Yeah.
You can't make it all.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I feel like it's just spaghetti against the wall. It's just experiments, one experiment after the other. You're right. You can't sing about everything, but you could try.
Right.
And then you can find your way from there. You know, I feel like I've just been experimenting with singing about everything that comes to me. And then I think a big part of the process for me, because my art is also sort of a social act, you know, a big part for me is what resonates between me and other people. And, you know, that guides me.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything.
What is that part of the process like for you when you're writing a song and seeing it through to fruition? How is it, because you've described it as it's sort of a moment, a feeling. It's right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's a flow state. It's not a thing that I'm conscious of when it's happening. It's a thing that I wake up from.
I love that. It's funny because in sports, a lot of athletes use that same word, flow, when they're in their vibe, in the best state. Ani, thank you.
Thank you,
There's so many
Lindsay.
more things
Such
to
a pleasure.
talk to you about. But this has been amazing. We know.
Thanks so much.
Now we put our shoes on. Can you tell us when we may expect the musical? And also, I know you're touring.
Oh,
You're going to be nearby on Mother's Day.
Oh,
I got my ticket.
Right. Yes, I'll be out and about in April. The musical, who knows? Long time. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you
All right.
so much. This is amazing.